Education today. Most Americans give their public schools a grade of no better than C. That's according to a poll that's released today. So over the next couple of days, we'll be looking at some educational reforms that aim to improve that grade. We start with the relatively new but growing trend toward private companies running public schools.
First thing on your first page, I want it to pertain to your reading groups. Okay.
He couldn't read very well at all, and I was very, very concerned. Then when it became Edison, an Edison school, he began reading very quickly.
The most revolutionary concept that's been implemented here is the computer-based education. And what's amazing to us is that they do their homework through computers. They even teach us things which we didn't know about.
These children are attending the Dodge Edison School in Wichita, Kansas, a school run for the past 2 years by one of the country's leading private for-profit education companies.
We contract with them to spend exactly the same money we spend on all of our other students.
The former president of Yale University is the Edison Project's chairman and CEO.
Edison offers a lot more. We offer 30 more days a year of school, computers in the homes of all the kids, a lot of teacher training that's not typical, a longer school day, a great curriculum.
A curriculum that emphasizes the basics in math and reading and is supported by individual tutoring and active parental involvement. Early results appear favorable.
They are doing everything they said they were going to do, and they're doing it pretty well.
But the heads of the nation's largest teachers' unions are not yet convinced.
They have not been in place long enough to have any kind of good research data available on whether or not this has improved student learning.
And there are concerns about the motives of companies like Edison.
Ultimately, what you're going to get down to is a choice between are you going to meet the needs of the kids or are you going to make profit? And just from a philosophical point of view, I think that if a school has any money left over, it ought to plow it into the needs of the kids, not into profits.
But school superintendents like Larry Vaughn aren't concerned.
If they accomplish the results and it takes more money, that's their issue. And if it takes less, that's their fortune, that's their good fortune. Our contract with Edison says that if they don't do the things they say they're going to do, I can end that contract overnight.
Parents are willing to give them a chance.
We can't afford private schools. A lot of us parents are low income. You know, we're not like high society people. We're just common. And for our children to be able to get a great school that we can be proud of, our kids can be proud of, I think that's great that our kids can learn.
Jeanne Allen is president of the Center for Education Reform, which supports private companies running public schools. Walter Farrell is a professor of educational policy at the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, and he opposes the idea. Nice to see both of you. Thanks for coming.
Good morning.
Let me start with you, Mr. Farrell. The results at Dodge Edison in Wichita seem to be pretty good. Test scores are up. Why shouldn't we hope that those scores will continue to rise?
Well, these are basically self-reports at this point. But we've been down this yellow brick road of educational reform before. In the 1970s, it was called performance contracting. And in that same Wichita school district, it was a colossal failure. It failed in Wichita, Gary, Indiana, Texarkana, Arkansas, and numerous other districts because you cannot educate poor children who are in need of resources, who are in need of quality instruction, and make a profit off of it.
Well, I know you're concerned that the results are short-term also, that there's no long-term track record.
And they're self-reports.
But how do we establish a long-term track record unless we try a system?
Well, the fundamental question is, why do we need to experiment with poor youngsters?
Well, you know, Matt, I think that's a very good point. First of all, what we've seen before, the history of school reform is that we have failed to a large extent to deliver the best education to our children. That's why we're sitting here. That's why you just saw a parent talking about how incredibly important it is that she have an option of getting her child to a better school because she can't afford a private school. The bottom line, however, is what's happening today with private companies running public schools is different from at any other time in history. You have individual schools and school superintendents in over half the states asking private companies to bring in their expertise. They've put a lot of research and development into what they're doing right now, and they're saying, look, we have a service to offer. No one's mandating this. No one's forcing you. If you want to help us, here's the bottom line. You perform, or you get out. And guess what? They're performing, and they are helping some of the lowest income children in this country.
We've had failures in the last 5 years in Hartford, Connecticut, Baltimore, Maryland, and I was projected there will be failure in Wichita.
Well, Walter, those
what
are
we have
business
is,
failures, not children failures.
No, those were school failures.
No, they were
There was
not.
fraudulent data, and what we found during the 70s, that after the third-party evaluations were in, there was fraud and abuse and mismanagement of money.
Let's talk about fraud and abuse. Arizona, one of the markets where for-profit companies are in play considerably, okay? You've got 4 superintendents in the last 2 months, 4 public school superintendents that have been indicted. We have kids in this country, 40% of our 4th graders can't even read at grade level. We have failure across the country. We need to help children.
Sooner or later, we're going to get to a point in this system where the company's going to have to choose to reinvest some of the money they're making in these students or to turn a profit. These are for-profit companies. Why do you assume they'll do anything but choose the profit?
See, the fundamental...
First of all, doing well and doing good are not mutually exclusive. Let me show you something. This is a magazine that goes to thousands of educators across the country. Half of it is advertisements for for-profit companies. Pencils, textbooks, all kinds of things. Desks, teachers. No one in our schools is not making a profit. Let's get this straight.
No, this is different. The fundamental philosophical question is, why do we need to experiment with poor youngsters, and especially poor youngsters of color? Why don't we experiment with middle-class youngsters? Poor youngsters need the same resources, the inputs as middle-class youngsters, and we always tend to experiment with poor people in this country. The Tuskegee experiment was an experiment that's supposed to help low-income black youngsters.
What are the statistics? How many times are these being tried in middle-class schools?
We have been they're being tried in middle-class schools all over the country. That's where most of these services are marketed.
That is
Let
not
me tell
true.
you something.
That is absolutely not true,
low-income youngsters in this country have not had anyone defending them. The status quo and the unions who you saw opposing this are people who have put themselves between the children and the system. They will defend a system to their dying day, despite the fact that the business is not doing well.
That are stepping forward to make money off poor youngsters have never had a track record. Most of them are not even educators, and they have not succeeded. We've been down this road before, and there's no need to continue to experiment with poor youngsters given the urgent problems they face.
And I'm going to have to make that the final word. It's too bad there's no emotion in this subject. Ms. Allen, Mr. Farrell, thank you very much.
Pleasure, thank you.
8:14.